So RWBY, Ice Queendom, episode 4 has arrived. I was actually surprised that a lot of people thought the first 3 episodes that aired early was immediately going to transition to episode 4. So yeah, we had to wait for the TV episodes to catch up before episode 4 would be revealed. And I mean, I had a lot of time to think about what we saw over those first 3 episodes, and the longer I thought of it, the more excited I was to see what they would do, especially after talking with some people in terms of what they kind of interpreted the kind of switch in Weiss's character as, which really made me more excited, because if you watch my video covering the first 3 episodes, I do talk about how, like, in the original show, there's more of a transition before Weiss kind of, like, you know, naturally says, okay, we're all gonna be friends, but in Ice Queendom, it kind of just happened, and it just kind of felt to me as if, okay, well, even though it is something that maybe if you've seen the original, you just get better development and they want to get to new stuff, but seemingly it is based around a character point, and that character point is that these nightmares that are possessing, we saw was John last in the previous episodes, now we have it with our girl Weiss. And based on how this episode goes, I'm willing to bet right now that most of the season might be focused on her nightmare. Now, that could be a mistake. They could very well resolve it in an episode or 2 and do something else with the plot, but it almost feels to me, because they decided to jump right into this moment, which, I mean, initially, I was a little shell-shocked. I was like, okay, I mean, I knew something like this would happen, but I was expecting it episodes down the line. I wasn't expecting to come off of episode 3 where we get the confirmation that she is being possessed by that same nightmare demon, and the fact that we're just dealing with that whole grim storyline immediately and having them invade her dream to try to free her from that, it kind of says to me that the remaining episodes want to just focus on Nightmare Weiss, which then in return could tell this personal story, which, I mean, the name is Ice Queendom. We know it's going to be primarily a new story focused on Weiss. And honestly, I would be completely okay if that's the direction they're going, because even though we're now in the RWBY versus Weiss dilemma, there's no way it gets resolved next week. But then again, the pacing has been pretty quick, so maybe it's going to do something even more different once they save her. But I'm kind of holding on to the hope that this is going to last as long as possible, because I love the idea of dreams. I love what they can do with basically weird-ass visuals, but also breaking apart someone's psyche. And I think for a character like Weiss, who has a lot of skeletons in her closet, the emotional baggage this girl's carrying, I mean, even if you hadn't seen the original show or don't know too much about her family dynamic, just look at how she perceives her father as this stone statue or just this supreme overlord looking in at her as he works his workers as a slave. And then you have the Fauna storyline and just how she hates him and basically paints him as like, oh, all they do is attack the trains and steal our goods. I imagine this episode probably won't get quite as much buzz as the initial episodes because of high-octane action scenes and whatnot, but this episode took me by surprise visually in a very positive way. I mean, initially when you just start this episode and you're looking at all the imagery, I mean, we have snowboarding RWBY, we have so many cool background details, and this season of anime has done wonders with shows really going out of the ordinary for how they're stylizing their backdrops. And I have to say, for going in someone's dream, almost this like weird storybook presentation choice in terms of how they directed so much. The sky almost had like, I don't know, just it looked like it was exploding with color, but then it almost felt like we're in a prison, and then it would switch around, and all the different characters we interacted with over the course of this episode. There's a gate that is hilarious. I mean, visually looked funny, but the whole idea that the way it lures dummies, as they're being referred to, is by saying how it's nice and warm and warm, you want to come in. And then when you see Team Juniper and just how like they're meowing like cats, like the way Weiss interprets people and how low she might think of people as it stands, and how in this dream world, this nightmare world, they just are thrown in jail cells, or the workers are slaving away doing the most mindless job for the most minimal pay. And it was fascinating watching RWBY basically hold this episode together by herself. There wasn't a lot of dialogue between anyone other than obviously on the outside when she used her coins to summon like phone booths, doors to kind of teleport around. Initially, I had no idea what the hell's going on with the coins. She would just flick it and things would pop up. I had no idea what the hell we were watching initially, and then once it started to click, I thought it was so cool that in order to be able to still talk with someone who's trying to guide you through this nightmare, she has a limited amount of money that can be used to use her own abilities to communicate and get certain things that will aid her in her support. There's a funny moment with the doll, the RWBY doll, that jumps around and acts as a decoy, which left me rolling. I thought it was hilarious watching robots chase the most fake looking RWBY ever, but they're robots, of course it would fool them. And just the whole idea that, you know, RWBY's not really doing things that smart. By the end of the episode, it looks like she has one coin left, and I imagine that coin's not going to make it to the end of episode 5, and then I wouldn't be surprised if Yang and Blake and others have to go in to try to rescue RWBY. But the idea that she has a limited amount of magic, so on her end it just looks like basically a sand glass, like with the little pebbles of sand going down, where for RWBY it's a bag of coins. It's a really cool visual detail, and I like how they're playing around with the magic system because, like I mentioned in my first impressions over the first 3 episodes, I think nightmares and invading dreams and those types of things, they're really cool. They're just some of the coolest things you can do with a visual medium like anime, because you can have a lot of fun, especially with all the colors and the animation techniques, and it really did feel like a mind trip watching it. The pacing was fast in the way that it felt like in any other show, you're thinking you're missing a set of episodes, like between episodes 3 and 4. And I'm not going to say that's an issue just yet because I haven't seen the majority of the show yet, so I'm going to wait and see how I feel when it's actually over. But as it stands, the biggest issue I have with this show is the way it's structured in terms of getting to the new stuff. I feel like there's almost like a need for this show to be a 15 or 16 episode run, because then you could have a bit more padding to get to these moments. But then again, they might surprise us and they'll decide to use flashbacks to lead up to this moment. I mean, I've seen that in other shows. But as it stands, it's hard not to feel like something's a little bit off with the structure, but the actual content that they're showing, I'm very much enjoying. This is all brand new territory. There's no more, oh, this is kind of how the anime's interpreting certain things. Like, this is brand new, interesting territory that has my mind eager for more. And I can't wait to see what they do both with the action, because not only did we already get a taste of real action in this world, which looked amazing, but the fact that now we're in this nightmare dream sequence, I think they can have even more fun with the possibilities, and you're already starting to see some clever little fun ways of how things can be different. Like the fact that when she's initially going up against the robot, she's trying to snipe one in front of her, and it shoots from behind because the interpretation of RWBY's weapon wasn't up to par with what it actually was in this dream world. So there's a lot of fun little things they could do, both accidental or just on purpose, crazy balls to the wall visuals. And I honestly think the new music is doing wonders. I know there is a bit of a pushback because we don't have that Jeff Williams, Casey Williams soundtrack, but here's the thing, this soundtrack's a banger. I really enjoy it. What we've heard of this RWBY soundtrack is very good, and I think because it's not trying to just be the original, it's important to do things that are different, and I think they're doing an amazing job alongside the Japanese voice actors, alongside the soundtrack, and I like the visuals and how it looks. Yeah, you can be nitpicky and pick apart certain shots when they're just walking and maybe say, yeah, the face doesn't look the best, or that movement wasn't as smooth as this other one. But when you look at the entire episode as a whole, it is just a beautiful location with chock full of interesting background scenery, details. It's not just cool looking visuals for the sake of it. It aids in the story that they're telling with this nightmare and how things are being presented. And the way they're interpreting Weiss's family, especially with the father and the almost slave trade thing going on here, where it's you're getting paid nothing, your workers are treated like shit, and she sees him as a very frightening, powerful overlord who she's just trying to please. And I think the idea of RWBY now believing that Weiss doesn't care for her, that it was all fake, it's going to serve as an interesting plot point, because I don't think it's completely bullshit. I think the natural transition that we saw towards the end of episode 3, where she was very supportive of RWBY, that's primarily driven by the nightmare that we're now dealing with and her fake kind of like persona overtaking her. However, there doesn't seem to be an actual hatred for RWBY as seen by her initial pushback and being disappointed RWBY was there, because now she has to deal with it because she doesn't want to disapprove with her father and things like that. I think this was a great episode overall. Definitely, I'm questioning the structure of the story in terms of how quickly they're getting to certain places. In this case, it's this brand new content that it almost felt like we're missing the real episode 4 and we're watching episode 5, but it doesn't ruin anything for me. It just makes me cautious with how they're structuring it. But that said, I still very much enjoyed it, and depending on how they structure future episodes, what I'm complaining about right now very much could be solved with flashbacks and things like that, but we'll leave it and see how it goes from here. But thoughts down below. We had a bit of a wait if you did watch the first 3 episodes when they initially dropped. Other people probably have been watching it weekly, so what did you think? Either if you've had to wait a few weeks, or if you only had that week wait, what do you think of episode 4, and what do you hope to see with the future of this show? Do let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.